I'm finally back to another Venomized episode. It's been 2 months since I did the last one with the Famous Dragons Venomized, and I'm glad I rested it for a bit. I thought I would wait a little bit longer, but lots of people in the comments of my latest Halloween, horror, spooky-focused episodes have been asking that I do something with horror kinds of characters and venomizing things. And I do think this was the perfect opportunity to bring back this kind of episode. And I'm glad I did. Honestly, I've done the drawings already, and I think this is the best Venomized episode yet. So let's just get right to it, right? I'm gonna take some classic Universal movie monsters and redesign them if they had symbiotes from the Marvel Universe. And I'm gonna write some lore for them, talking about how they got their symbiotes, and what their new powers and enhancements are like. As always, hitting the like button really helps with algorithm stuff, and I appreciate when people do that. And a subscribe never hurts either if you're new to the channel, because I do 2 videos kinda like this a week. But what's really important is that we're getting into the drawings now. Let's go! Out in the multiverse, there is a world very similar to our own, but plagued with supernatural beasts and beings who stalk the night and haunt the dreams of children. Upon this world, a particularly irresponsible multiverse overseer has released a swarm of symbiotes from Earth M616, just to see what would happen. Today, we explore the results. The first of the symbiotes, by the name of Cruor, found its way to Transylvania, drawn by the hunger and power of one of its more vile residents. Count Dracula, the reviled vampire, was overtaken by Cruor, and together they became the ultimate blood-sucking beast. Cruor adapted Dracula's ability to become a bat into a more convenient power. He gave him massive bat wings on Dracula's vampire form, so he could soar through the moonlit skies as his full, menacing self. He also enhanced his bite, lengthening and strengthening his teeth, so he could suck a person dry in a matter of seconds. He could also shoot tendrils with fanged tips, so he could bleed prey dry from afar. Cruor also thickened Dracula's skin, so while a stake through the heart could still technically kill him, it would need to be driven with far more force, likely only possible by another superhuman being or entity. This thickened skin also protects Dracula in the daylight, though the Count rarely takes advantage of this, as he still prefers to go out in the night. And while there is the downside of Dracula now being weak to overwhelming noises, this is rarely a problem so long as he stays away from church bells near the crest of noon. Cruor and Dracula together could very well be the end of humanity in Transylvania. Now, of all the Universal Classic movie monsters, Dracula's probably one of the ones that looks less like a monster, because, you know, he kind of just looks like a guy with fangs and some cool capey kind of clothing, but that's why I knew it would be fun adapting him into more of a monster with the Venom or Cruor symbiote on him. I knew right away that I wanted to add big bat wings to him. Obviously, that feels a bit inspired by all the dragon videos I do on this channel, but I wanted to make the wings a little bit creepier. Like, I looked at more reference images of bats, so they still look pretty similar to what I often do, but I don't know, the hands are a little bit unsettling looking with the really long fingers. You'll be able to see it more clearly near the end. The thing that I end up liking the most about this drawing is actually the composition, which is one I've used a few different times in my turning stuff into dragons videos, but the thing that I think enhances this one is the big moon that I put right in behind Dracula, using a bit of a greeny color so Dracula's red really pops against it, and the combination of that and the wings just really helps focus us down on Dracula, his head, his torso, and I really like how it turned out. And I hope you all do as well. Here is our final version of Venomized Dracula. Now, in this world, there are multiple Wolfmen. Surviving the bite of a werewolf, which admittedly is a rare occurrence, will result in the victim becoming one on the night of a full moon. And on one of these fully mooned nights, Umbra found the host for her. A werewolf was scouring the forests outside London, searching for a meal. The man, in his human form earlier that day, set off for the forest to avoid people on the monthly night of his curse. But Umbra had other plans for him. She overtook the wolf and altered his physiology so that he could never again return to his human form unless she allowed it. Umbra loved the rage and hunger and power of the werewolf form, and only increased it by being on him. She further emphasized the wolven characteristics of the man by lengthening his snout and extending his ears. While the werewolf was already superhumanly strong, he became that much more powerful, able to split a tree in half with a single swipe of a claw. Like Kruor had done for Dracula, Umbra made the Wolfman's hide more durable, able to take a dozen shots from silver bullets before being brought down. But the one thing they'd together be particularly weak towards was loud noises. The Wolfman had enhanced hearing already, so now it would take even less than usual to weaken Umbra's connection to her host. But this was a very small price to pay, as this creature was now the most formidable hunter in the lands, and soon thousands would grow to fear the symbiote werewolf in London. Now, when I was looking at images of the Wolfman and thinking of how to symbioteify this character and make it more menacing and monstrous, I immediately thought of making it look more like the werewolves from Van Helsing. Say what you will about that movie, but the werewolf designs in that, I personally think are by far the coolest werewolves that I've ever seen, and I have one of them up on screen as I'm doing this drawing referencing it, particularly for the snout and face. And then the other stuff that I kind of do for it is I take some inspiration from the clothing of the Wolfman to inspire what I do with the design on this character, but it does end up being pretty simple. I have a white section for where the character's white shirt kind of thing would be, then I extend the vest a little bit, and of course I'm making this all skin tight to the character, making them very muscular and venom-like, and then I'm adding white streaks throughout the character to give it a bit more venomy kind of texture, and then I keep the head and the lower legs a little bit brownier / it's still pretty gray, but just a brownier kind of gray, just to have a bit more of the werewolfy kind of look in there. Maybe I should have made that black as well, but I wanted a little bit more variety on the character, and overall I'm very pleased with how it looks. I also darkened the area around the eyes more than usual, and I think that really helps the eyes pop, especially because I made them a little bit yellow, so they really stand out in a largely blue background. It's a simple design again, but I'm very pleased with how this one turned out, and I hope you all like our Venomized werewolf. Let's see how fast I can do this little interruption thing so we can get back to the art. As with a lot of my videos lately, a bunch of the art from this video is going to be available up as posters on my Teespring store, some of which you can see linked in a little bar underneath all my videos, or you can see the full store with all the posters I have available by clicking the link in the description. So if you want my art as posters, you can find it there. Hope that interruption wasn't too long or annoying, and now we can get back into drawing with venomizing the creature from the Black Lagoon. One symbiote searched long and far before finding a fitting host. Fluvian made his way to the Amazon rainforest, slithering through the waters of the Amazon River in search of its perfect pair. You see, Fluvian was drawn to Earth's waterways and was hunting for a host who could navigate them well. And after much searching, he finally found his new ally. A humanoid fish being, referred to by some as the Gill Man, was traveling the waters of the Amazon when Fluvian latched on to the creature. The Gillman struggled at first, but soon accepted the change, as the two together became a monstrous, powerful, aquatic nightmare. The Gillman was naturally an excellent swimmer, but with the symbiote enhancement, it could now also traverse the treetops with incredible speed. It could leap and stick to trees and swing from vines like an ape. Its tongue became long and sticky like that of a frog, so the creature could snatch up prey and draw them straight into its toothed maw. The two would use their combined abilities to attack any humans who would try to invade the peaceful nature of the forests. And they could now do this with great ease and success. Though the beast would now have to eat far more to sedate its hunger, there was little in the way of downsides for either of these creatures, as diving into the rainforest waters could get them away from most things that would threaten their bond. Short of these two being struck by lightning, Fluvian and the creature from the Black Lagoon became the perfect pairing that would be the bane of any travelers trying to make their way through the Amazon. Now, one thing you'll notice pretty quickly is what I was doing with the eyes. You've probably seen that it doesn't look super venomy. I was trying to do something a little bit different to add some more variety to this video, but I ended up doing away with that and making them kind of more classic Venom eyes. I just realized it didn't really need it, and the character wasn't gonna look super venomy if I did the eyes this way, so I changed it up partway through the coloring process. And I really like how this one turns out. Again, this is still on the theme of simplicity. With a lot of these designs, I was going with a very simple look that I, partway through some of the drawings, thought they were going to be too simple, but I think the simplicity really works for these, and let me focus a little bit more on the rendering, and I think that overall makes the drawings a lot better. With Frankenstein next, I maybe went a little bit too simple, but we'll get there in a second. One thing I wanted to make sure to do with this one was not make it look too similar to my Carnage version of Ripjaws from Ben 10, which I drew on a live stream a little while ago, because obviously Ripjaws and the creature from the Black Lagoon are very similar looking, so I want to make sure there's enough variety between the two. I don't want to just draw the same thing again. And I think part of what really sells this one as different is the coloring. I made this one green, that one I did red and black because it was supposed to be mixed with Carnage, and overall I don't think they end up being very similar, mostly because of the head kind of shape. Despite changing up the eyes right near the end, I really like how the mouth, head, eyes, all that kind of came together really nicely. It helps that the tongue and the eyes are red/pink, so we get drawn right into looking at that. I think it really helps make this piece work. And I hope you all agree. Here's the creature from the Black Lagoon Venomized. The final symbiote we look upon today found its host near the mountains of Switzerland. It was fleeing in confusion and fear as it didn't know what or who or why it was. The lumbering green beast was a perfect host for Validus to embody. It was a creature with little in the way of personal bias and would be very easy to manipulate. Or so he thought. Validus attached to the green brute and used this host body to run rampant in the nearby towns. Validus was thriving as his natural strength, paired with the size and brute force of this monster, made him a wrecking ball of a being, and Validus loved showing off his power. But there were a few problems for him with this host. Every so often, the electricity coursing through the creature would disrupt their bond, and the monster would try to use these opportunities to tear the symbiote off. It seems, while the creature was simple-minded, it did still resent being used for such senseless violence. It would even try returning to its creator, Victor Frankenstein, to get help, but being seen headed to his creator's lair would only cause suspicion that Victor was in league with the beast's rampage and send the nearby townsfolk into a raging mob to kill Victor Frankenstein. And so the monster would be stuck with this violent alien, ever searching for a way to rid himself of it. But slowly over time, he was learning about this parasite that plagued him, as well as the world around him, getting smarter and smarter. The monster's brain developed enough so that it could goad Validus into seeking out his symbiote brethren to see if they'd found more fitting hosts. The jealousy Validus would incur from seeing others, like Dracula and the Wolfman, would push him to fight his symbiote kin for his own petty pride to prove himself superior. Even if Frankenstein's monster couldn't rid himself of his symbiote, he could in the least use it to stop other monsters from reigning over the innocent of the world. Kinda thought that open-ended ending would be a nice way to add a little bit of hope for this very dark, monster-filled kind of universe. And now, for this drawing, as I mentioned earlier, this one is very simple and probably the most simple, and it's one of those cases that happens now and then where I love how the drawing itself turns out, but I don't think it quite represents the original character that I'm adapting enough. In fact, it kind of looks like it could just be the Hulk because of the green hands. Because the problem is, with Frankenstein, there's not a ton of visual detail to pull from anywhere besides his head, because in his original look, he's kind of just a really tall, green, black and white movie, but he's generally seen as being green, a big green guy in, black clothing with giant boots. So with his head, I made sure to emphasize the square kind of shape of his head, put those pegs in his neck. I probably could have made his forehead bigger, but the part I was focusing on most was the hands pulling the symbiote off. Anyone who's seen any of my other Venomized videos knows that I really love drawing at least one character pulling the symbiote off themselves, and this is one of my favorites specifically because of how I did the hands. I think the first hand has a really interesting shape to it, like it really looks like Frankenstein's monster is pulling hard to get the symbiote off, and I like that I had the lips kind of pulling down with the strands as they're coming off. So even though this isn't super Frankenstein-y, I hope you all like the final drawing of the video, Frankenstein's monster Venomized. So what do you think? If you've seen the other Venomized episodes, did I call this right? Is this the best one yet? I mean, personally, in terms of the art, I would say I think this is the best one. But in terms of story, I still think the My Hero Academia Venomized episodes and the Godzilla Venomized episode have better, more interesting stories than this one. Just because I spent a bit more time and those are longer stories. But I don't know, maybe some people even like the story and lore better in this episode. Let me know in the comments. And of course, if you haven't seen the other Venomized episodes, make sure to check them out. I've got a whole playlist of them that'll link in the end card, and most of them have stories or lore or something along those lines. Some of them don't, but most of them do. And check out my original story episode, Biomet Kayla. It's not technically Venomized, but it's very Venom-inspired. But aside from that, that's all for today. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I'm Christian Pearson. This has been PopCross Studios, home of the Nerdiest Art videos on YouTube. I've got one more Halloween-focused episode coming up, but it's the monthly community redraw, the deadline of which I think is on Sunday? Thanks for watching, if I haven't said that already, and I'll see you in the next one on Monday. Goodbye.